for now, we want to add the shapefile. Okay, we want to add the shapefile that I added, and the shapefile should have a file extension that says .shp. So if we go over here, you see that add layers tab. So if you open that, if you click on that option over here, it should give you the data source manager, and that should allow you to browse to the location of your data so that you should be able to import it. So in terms of data, there are different types of data you can look at. Basically in GIS, we have two types. We have raster data, and then we have vector data. So the vector data basically is the type of data that I shared with you, where you have features already digitized, and then you also have some sort of points, coordinates already available in your data. But if you are looking at a raster data set, it is just that type of data which is made of a grid. So it is made of a grid, and then those grids produce cells. So you have multiple cells in the data, which again we would look at, and then for each cell it has a unique value. So today we would be working with some vector data sets in the form of the shapefile, and then the Excel file or the CSV file that you already have. And then for the raster data set, we would download it as part of the exercise. We would download it in QGIS. So if you have your data source manager opened, what we want to do is to go to the vector data type. That is the first data type that we have over here. And then we want to go to directory, or you can still use file if you want. And you click on those three dots just beside. If you click on those three dots just beside the vector data set, it should open your file directory so that you can go on your computer and then you can locate where you kept that data. Okay, so for mine, I kept it on desktop. So you can browse to where your data is, and then we want to select the shape file. So the file that has the extension .sh. I would add quickly the data and I would go over it again. So and then add. So let me enter into your view panel. Okay. Now that we have that, there are some things that it's very basic for us to do. We want to know what is in this data set. Okay, so are we looking at a data set showing the area of the place? Are we looking at population? What is it that this data set is showing? Or is it just showing the polygons, okay, of the various provinces in Canada? So to do that, we would want to open the attribute table. It is the table that contains information about your data. So first, what you want to do is to right click on your data layer in your layers or your content tab, just like I have done. And then once you right click on it, you go to the part that says attribute table. Okay, so once you open your attribute table, there we go. So in the attribute table, right, it shows us the information about our data set that we are working with. So now we know that our data set has information about the provinces of Canada, okay? And then it also has the various abbreviation for the provinces. Now, if we wanted to select a particular province, say we don't know that province, we can select it from the attribute table. And then if you go to your map or your shapefile, that province should be selected. If we select, say, British Columbia, that should select it from our map. I'll move this up a little bit. And then if we select, say, Newfoundland, not Newfoundland, but that should also show over there. And then if we go to the Northwestern Territories, we should be able to see them. Okay, so basically the attribute table tells us information about everything that our data set contains. And we can also select multiple features in our attribute table. So if I wanted to do 𝗷𝗍𝗃 and then say British Columbia, you select the first one you want, you hold down the control key, and then say we want to do Manitoba, and then we want to do Ontario. So the thread would select, and if we go back, we should see this here. Okay, so the attribute table shows us information about our data set, and then also it helps us to identify the different parts of our data. So again, if we want to clear our contents, we just would click on the reload table option over there, and that should clear our attribute table. Okay, now I would close that. And again, if you want to identify what is actually in your data, I made mention that you can use the identify option. Okay, so the identify feature, which is part of the menus that we have here, once you click on that, you can click on any feature and that should give you information about it. So it tells you the province is 𝗷𝗍𝗃, and then the province abbreviation also as well. And then sometimes you have more information, the longitude, latitude, it could give you information about the area and all that, depending on what actually you have as part of your data set. So the identify tool is also very useful when it comes to identifying what you actually have in your data set. So that is the identify tool for now. We would close it and then we would proceed. Okay, any questions? All right, you can open your attribute table. I hope by now you should be able to do that. And then once you do that, you can select various different items or different features in your data sets. You can observe what actually your data contains from there. Okay, so for now we will turn off the identify feature, and then we would proceed from here. So a question is, how do you deselect the area? So you can switch off once you have the identify button in there. Okay, that particular spot is going to select. So if you want to switch from the identification to moving on to just panning around, you switch to the human hand, which is over there, and that should deselect whatever it is that you have selected. However, if you were in the attribute table, okay, and then you had selected, say, multiple things, right? If you wanted to deselect them, you would use the reload table option, which is shown here. And then once you do that, everything should be deselected. See it. Okay, I think we can proceed from here. So for what work we want to do, we want to select only a few provinces. Let me go to the identification tool. We want to work with Yorkum. We want to work with British Columbia. We want to work with Alberta. We want to work with Manitoba, and then we want to work with Ontario. We don't want to work with the northeastern provinces and then the southeastern provinces. So we want to only select a few of these provinces to work with. Okay, so in order to do that, we would go to our attribute table again. All right, so let's go to our attribute table, and then now let's select the provinces that we want to work on. So let me quickly, yeah, and then yeah, so we want to work with Alberta, so that should be selected for now. And then we want to work with British Columbia, that should be selected. We want Manitoba, that should be selected. Let's see what that gives us. We don't want to work with that one. let's see, Newfoundland, we don't want to work with that. We don't want to work with that. Let's see for Ontario. Yes, we want Ontario. And then Yukon, we want to work with that. And then Saskatchewan. So now we have these provinces selected from our attribute table, okay? I will just expand the attribute table so that you can see those we selected. And then selected at this point, can we proceed? We have our provinces of choice selected, okay? What we want to do is that we want to extract these provinces of choice and then save them only as a shapefile of their own. We should have these ones selected, okay? So if we open our attribute table, we should see that these layers are selected. So we want to export them as a layer on their own, as a shapefile on their own, okay? So with the selection still on, all right, you right-click on the Canada Provinces shapefile in your content or your layers tab, okay? So when you right-click on it, we should see this pop-up here showing for us with all sort of things that we can do. Now, what we want to do is we want to go to export. Okay. So under export, we should see several options here. So save feature as, we have save selected features as, we have save as layer definition file. So what we want to do is we want to save only the selected features. So we go to the second option, select save selected features as. Okay. And then we just want a shapefile. So basically you keep it as default Esri shapefile. If you wanted it in a form that you can export to AutoCAD, you can do that. But for now, we want it as an Esri shapefile, okay? And then we want to move from saving it to a particular location. So where it says file name, I would label mine as selected provinces. Okay, so selected provinces. And then this is just a note. Usually when you are saving shapefiles, it does not require that you keep spaces between the names. So you have selected, if you want to space it out, you can use an underscore or a dash sign. Okay, usually spaces don't work well in some of these GIS softwares. So we can give it any name that we want. Just besides the file name, we can see that there are some 3 dots over there. Okay, so for those 3 dots, you click on that, and then it should open your file directory on your computer. Okay, so it should open that for you, and then you should save your file. Now, again, do not save it to OneDrive. Okay, try to save it onto your desktop or onto the folder location where you have your files so that you can quickly locate it. So if I go to my desktop and then I go under data for training, all right, if I go under data, I want to save it here. So selected provinces, Canada, that should be there. And then I should click save. Okay, now projections, we can talk about that. But aside that, we want to keep every other thing default for now. And then we want to click OK. So once we click OK, we should see the selected province. Okay, the ones that we selected, we should see them in our content or in our layers tab, as well as the initial one that we were working with. Now, what we can do is that we can turn off the whole bigger shapefile that we don't need. So at this point, we don't want Canada provinces as a whole, right? We only want the selection we've made. Okay, so for now, I would remove the duplicate layer, and then we would work with the first one. Okay, now that we have our selected shapefiles, okay, I would take off the whole shapefile from here. So if you want to remove something, say at this point, my analysis is going to be restricted to only the selected shapefiles here. So I don't need the whole shapefile for the provinces in Canada. So I can just turn it off, okay, by checking it like that. And I don't have to worry about it. Or if I don't want to bother myself seeing a lot of layers in my layers tab or in my content pane, I can just remove it. So if you want to remove it, what happens is that you right click on that particular layer that you don't need, and then you go to remove layer over here. So from the pop-up, you can go to remove layer, and then you just say, okay, so we only have our selected layers here. All right. Now, if we open the attribute table for this one, we won't see all the provinces. We would only see these selected provinces. So if we go to our attribute table, we just have these ones, just these 6 selected provinces that we want to work on. Okay. Any questions? All right. So now that we have these provinces, okay, we want to bring in, say you have data from different places. Like in this one, I have data about number of graduate students. I have information about amount of precipitation, cost of living. Those are just made up in the Excel file. So I want to represent those data in this map. Okay, I want to import the data in the spreadsheet on top of this map. Now, note that if we open our attribute table, okay, we don't have that data here. All right. So in order to import that data on our map, okay, and then try to do some analysis, we should connect it to our selected provinces file. So quickly, I would go to the folder where I have our data over. Yeah, so if I quickly open up this data, and again, this data is made up, so no need to reason meaning into it, but for the purpose of visualization, we just need some numbers. Okay, so we have all the provinces here, their abbreviation, their longitudes and latitudes, and then the number of grad students living in each province. Now we've selected a few of them. We don't have to do anything or delete anything here. All right, and then we have the total population, okay, of people in that province. So you have grad student population, total population, the cost of living, which is made up, the precipitation, which is also made up. So we want to import this data into GIS, and then we want to do some analysis using this data. Okay, we want to show this data on the map so that someone can see that, okay, for Manitoba, this is the percentage of grad students. This is the percentage of, say, the whole population. This is a ratio for whatever analysis we want to do. Okay, so for now, I would close that. I won't save because I just want it as it used to be. And I would come back to my GIS. So now to add our data, we said whatever layer we want to add, we want to go to the Open Data Source Manager. So if we go to the Open Data Source Manager, now remember that the first data I added was the shapefile that I did. Okay, now I want to add a new data. Okay, for this data that I have, it's in the form of a CSV. Okay, CSV means comma separated files, or some would say comma deleted files. So in order to add that CSV or that spreadsheet, instead of using the vector, just like we are seeing, vectors are just made of points, lines, and polygons. Okay, so instead of using that, we want to go to the delimited text over here. Okay, we want to go to the delimited text. All right, so we go to the delimited text that we have. That is the data type we want to put in for the spreadsheet. Okay, and at this point, if your spreadsheet is opened, you cannot import it because it is open. So you may want to close the spreadsheet. All right. And then under file name, you can type it, but the easiest way is you want to browse to where your file is. So you click on browse, and that should open the directory on your computer. All right. And you select the spreadsheet that you have, the CSV file. So once we do that, we select that one, and then we open it. Okay, so we should see the name of it, Canada provinces data. We should see the file here, and then if we scroll down a little bit, okay, now it's important to get your data imported right. Okay, so if we are looking at geospatial data, I mentioned earlier on that the one thing that defines this kind of data, it's its geographic attributes. So it is supposed to have a longitude and a latitude. That is what would help you to plot the data, okay, in your GIS software. So if you come to the geometry definition, you should see an X field, okay? You should see a Y field, and usually the Z field is the field of interest that you want to analyze, okay? So you can select any field as possible if you want. You can select, say, grad students population. You can select precipitation, cost of living, or whatever it is that you want to analyze. But usually your Z field should represent your parameter of interest, what you want to show. Okay, your X and Y fields defines the geographic attributes. Okay, so if you have the cardinal coordinates, okay, you have that X and Y. Okay, if you are moving along, say, a single plane for the X-axis, okay, the X-axis, you can refer to that as being a longitude, okay, say a single X-axis, and then you are moving along different points along the X-axis. That should be, you are changing longitude, right? But if you have a Y-axis and then you are moving along that, it means you are changing in latitude, okay? So for our X field, all right, we want to label that as our longitude, and for our Y field, we want to label that as our latitude. And then for our Z field, for now, we want to start with, say, the number of graduate students. Okay, for the M field, we can leave it open, but for now, we want to start with the number of graduate students. Okay, and then once we do that, we go to add. And then if we go to add, we should see that all the points, okay, have been added. Now, we can see the points from the other places as well, like those provinces that we did not need, all being added at this point. Okay, so again, same way, we can select the points that we wanted to select for these specific provinces. Using the same procedure, we can export the selected points, and then we can discard the whole data set, or we can do away with the whole data set. Okay, so in case we want to select just the points plotted in our selection, it's the same thing. We open our attribute table, all right, and then we select those that we wanted to work with. So Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, and then we looked at Ontario, and we looked at Yukon, and I think Saskatchewan. Yeah, so you should see that these ones now are selected, okay, compared to these ones. These ones should be selected. So we can repeat that same procedure. We can go to export, and then we save the selected features, okay? And then once we do that, we can select a file location, okay? and then we should save. So once we do that, I see there are a couple of comments, but I would quickly attend to those. So now we should have only the ones we want to extract, okay, showing in our selected features. So why did we designate X as the longitude and then the Y as the latitude? Okay, so if you are looking at the cardinal coordinate system, right, or the Cartesian plane, you have X, okay, just like that, and then you have your Y field, okay? So your X field, your Y field, your X is the horizontal, and then your Y is the vertical, okay? Now, I know that your X field, okay, usually you would say that that is here, your latitude, okay? But at this point, you are moving along the X, right? You are moving from one X value. If you are moving along the X, rather you are changing your longitudes. Do we see that? And then if you are looking at the Y, okay, commonly your Y, you would represent it as your longitude. But if you are moving along your Y, okay, you are changing latitudes. Okay, so that is why for the X, we are looking at moving along the X plane. So we are changing in longitudes. And then for the Y, we are changing in latitude. Okay, so I hope that explains it to you. But ordinarily, yes, you can say that, okay, for your Y is your longitude and your X is your latitude. But if you are looking at a change along the X, it means that you are changing in longitude. And then a change along the Y is a change in latitude. Okay, I hope that explains it. Your add column is deactivated. So make sure that at least you have your content pane selected before you go to your add. Okay, and then when you click on the delimited text option, okay, at this point you should see those 3 dots. Okay, and then you should be able to select your data and then import it. So I hope that helps. All right. And the question is the geometry to choose. So for the geometry, all right, these are points. Okay, just like we can see on the map over there. So the point is what we want to choose. And then because it's a delimited text file, you have longitudes and latitudes data. Automatically, it will select the points for you. Okay, but if it doesn't select it for you, make sure that you have point coordinates. That is the one that we are using. Your data, okay, the points over here is not showing on the selected provinces, but it is showing on other provinces. Is that what you're saying? Now, I think it comes with how the data was imported. That is why, again, I can quickly turn this one off, all right? But then if you are importing your data, okay, if you select your file, okay, make sure that your X field here, okay, your X field, you are changing in X. Okay, so if you are changing in X, make sure your X field, all right, is your longitude. And then your Y field is your latitude. Okay, and then your Z field, at the moment, we are using grad students population. So you should have your data source manager like this: a point coordinate system showing longitudes for the X field and then latitude for the Y field. And then the number of grad students for the Z field. For the M field, it's just an additional field or additional data that you may want to process. So we can select any other thing else. But for now, we want to leave it simple and just have number of grad students here. Okay. And then geometry is point coordinate system. Okay. And then once you do that, if you add, you should have all the points added. Now I added the original data set. So I have all the points added. If I right click on that and I go to zoom to layer, you would see that there are some points outside of the selection, okay? Because these points are for all the data sets, all the various provinces, okay? But I only want to use those ones for the various selections that I have. So to do that, we would repeat the same process we did initially of how to do the selection. So you open the attribute table for that, and then we want to select the points for the various provinces we need. So Alberta, we have British Columbia, we have Manitoba, we have Ontario, we have Saskatchewan, and then we have Yukon. So if I hide my attribute table, you would see that those points are selected. Okay, in the selected layers that I have, those points are quite selected. Do we see that? And then you can right click on that, you go to export, and then you save the selected features. Okay, I would get back to you Moloto in a moment, but if we go to our export, we should then see this, and then you give it a file name, you select a directory, okay? So I would say selected points. All right. And then if I click OK, I should now see only the selection. So now this should go, and then if I right click on selected points and go to zoom to layer, I would see only the points that we selected. All the others should be off. Okay. But in GIS, the first layer that you import, okay, so our first layer was all the provinces, right? Unless you define a projection, if you don't define a projection, all the other layers that you import will automatically pick the projection for the first one. Okay, so that is just an FYI. So if you haven't touched the projection, do not worry about it. All the others would automatically pick the first or the default projection we used for the shapefile. All right, but here is one thing you have to note. If let's say you have different data sets that have different projections, okay, assuming that for the points, okay, the point that I was using, if it had a projection that is different from, say, that of the shapefile, then it means I would have to reproject it. And I would have to reproject to the coordinate system for the shapefile. So if we go to the properties for the selected provinces layer, okay, if we go to that and we go to information, all right, if we scroll down, you could see the coordinate system here, EPS WGS 84. We could see that, right? But had it been that when we were importing the points, had it been it had a different projection for the points, then I would have, or I would need to reproject the points to match the projection of the shapefile. Okay, so again, you can always cross-check. If you right-click on that, you can go to properties, and then you can always check. Okay, we can see that it is the same here, WGS 84. Everybody got it. So we can move ahead at this point. All right, so I should have 1, the selected provinces, and then 2, I should have the points for the selected provinces. Do we see that? So we should all be at this point, I believe. Okay, so we can play with our data. We can make sure that our data looks clean. We make sure it looks nice. So currently our provinces are filled. It is filled because you can see a particular color there. So we want our provinces to be plain. We don't want anything showing in it. So if we want to do that, we can right click on our provinces, right? And then we can go to properties. So if we right click on that, and then it opens our properties pane, okay? We want to go to symbology. And when you click on symbology, you should see a whole lot of things over here. So commonly, I usually prefer the no fill symbol. I do not want to fill it up. So I want to do a red outline and then it has no fill. Okay, you can change the color for it. If you come over here, you have a black outline, you can do that. You can change the transparency and all that, had it been that it was filled. But at this point, I just want an outline. Okay, I selected the red outline, but I changed the color to black. So once I do that and I click OK, I should see that now I am only having the boundaries of the selected provinces. And then I have the points plotted in them. But again, you right click on the selected provinces layer, you go to properties as you have, or you can select a blue outline. If I use the blue outline and I click OK, the outline should change to blue. So depending on your preference, you can use whichever one it is you want. So at this point, I would go back to my black outline and then I would use that one, okay? So same way, we can also change the symbol for the points that we have. So if we double click on that, that should open the properties pane like we've seen. We could have double clicked. Okay, so you can choose a red dot. You can increase the size of it if you think it's too small. Okay, you can increase the size in terms of millimeters. You can also change the color to whichever color it is you want. So for now, I would use red as my color and I would click on OK. So now I should have these points ready and then all of them plotted in my provinces layer. Okay. So now that we have the points of our interest plotted, and then we have what is it called? Our provinces of interest also plotted. Now, the best thing for you to do is to let someone know what provinces they are looking at. Okay. So in order to do that, we will want to label our provinces. So to do that, you right click on your selected province layer, okay? And then you go to show labels. And then you should see them open. So you should see Yukon, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. You should see those labels currently available. All right, so now that it's all good, if we open the attribute table for the selected provinces, we see that we have information about just the province name and the attributes or the abbreviation, right? But then if we go to the attribute table for the various points, all right, the spreadsheet has information about number of grad students, population, cost of living, and precipitation. Now we want to show this data in here in our selected provinces shapefile. So for each province, like say British Columbia, we want to see the number of grad students, or we want to see the amount of precipitation. That is what we want to communicate with our map. Okay, but that information is not within the selected provinces shapefile. So in order to do that, we have to join the information from the points or the spreadsheets we have to the shapefile. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So in order to do that, you right click on your selected provinces shapefile, like I have done, and then in your table, what you do is that you go to properties. Okay, so if you open properties, all right, we want to locate the field that says join. Okay, this is what we want to do. All right, and then under joins, we want to see this plus sign here. Do we all see that green plus sign at the bottom left? So we want to join these points, okay, the points in the spread, like the spreadsheet. We want to join the data in the spreadsheets, okay, to the shapefile for the provinces, okay. But what happens is that if you are doing a join, you should have two common fields in the two data sets so that they can match, all right? So if we open the spreadsheet, we should see a province in there. And then if we open the shapefile tool, we should see a province in there, okay? So what we are seeing here is this province, all right? This province here, all of this information is in the spreadsheet. Do we see that? So that has the province information there. And then the target field here is the province, which is also in the shapefile. So at this point, we would leave it as the default. And then what we want to do is that we want to click OK. That is all we want to do. We just want to join the fields, okay? So if we click OK, and then we click Apply, and then OK again. Now, if we open the attribute table, we should see all the other information from the spreadsheet added to that of the shapefile. Now, initially, it wasn't here. So now, because we joined the spreadsheet to the shapefile, we are seeing those information. So at this point, I can even turn off the spreadsheet point, right? Or I can remove it, but I will still have the information from that spreadsheet imprinted in the shapefile. Okay, so now that we have this information, we have grad students population, we have all sort of information that we need. We can expand that out. So that is precipitation. We have, that is the cost of living, which are numbers I made up. We have the population, and then we have also number of grad students. All right. Now, because we have these different information, we want to show those information. Okay, so for each province, we want to show the information embedded in that. So we would start with the number of grad students living in each province. Okay, so you right click on the selected provinces. Now that data is in that attribute table, it's in that shapefile. So we right click on that, and even at this point, we can turn off those points, the points from our spreadsheet. So we right click on the shapefile we want, which now contains our information, and then we go to properties again. Now, under properties, we want to go to symbology. So now you should have the properties pane for the shapefile opened, and then you should be under symbology. All right. Now, under symbology, what we want to do, now nothing is showing. Okay, nothing is showing. No information is showing in it. So under the part where it says single symbol, all right? So just at the top, you can see that it says single symbol, all right? We want to click on that. And then we want to select the graduated. So we don't want to select the symbol, the single symbol. So we want to graduate it. We want to show different, we want to show the population of grad students based on the categorization. So you select graduated, all right? And then once you select graduated, okay, it will ask you for a value. So for the value, we can start with whichever one we want. So we can do population, we can do cost of living, we can do precipitation. But at this point, we want to do number of grad students, the number of graduate students. That is only what we want to show. Okay. And then in terms of the symbol, You can look at different colors. You can look at changing all that. But what we want to do is that we want to select a color RAM that shows different types of colors, like we can see here. Okay. And then we have 5 classes over here. So we want to divide the numbers that we have into 5 categorizations. So maybe say from 0 to 1,000, 1,100 to 1,200, we have those classes. Okay, so we want to do 5 classes. You can increase the number if you want. You can do 6 classes. You can do 5 classes. But usually I try to minimize the number of classes I want, unless there is so much variation in the data. If there is so much variation, then you can do multiple classes. Okay, so for now, all the lowest value is 90, as I have there. So from 90 to 4,200, okay, would be represented with a red color. So on the map, if you see any color that shows red, it means for that province, the number of grad students living there is between 90 to 4,200. Okay, then the next color follows like that, and then you can modify this as you want. Okay, so if I want to modify them, all right, we can double click on the symbol before each one of these values. Okay, usually I use red for something that is quite high, and then I use blue code colors for something that is low. That is my preference. So you can change that as you want. Okay, so instead of using red for the low colors, I would use something that is, say, a blue. Okay, and then I would pick like a simple blue fill, and we can reduce the transparency, so we can go with, say, 50. Yeah, all right, or we can, that is too light, so instead of 50, let's do it, say, maybe 30. Yeah, and that should be okay. All right, so if I click OK, now I should have that. Okay, it's still very faint, so let me keep it at, say, maybe 80. Yeah, 80 should be fine. 80 should be okay. And we click on OK, so that is good for now. So at this point, blue would represent all numbers between 90 to 4,200. So we can repeat the same for all the others, and we can change it. So for that one, again, I would select a simple fill, and then I would change the color to something that is quite light, maybe to a green. Yeah, and then I would give it an 80% for that. And then for that color, maybe now I would go into the much more warm colors. So something a little bit like that. Okay. And then now to the very warm colors. So we select that one, and then to the reds. 80. Okay. And then the last one, probably very red. Yeah. So at this point, we should have different classes. We've classified our data showing the different ranges of grad students population for the different provinces that we have. And then once we click OK, we should see them. So what over here we are seeing is that for Yokun, grad students living there is between 90 to 4,200. For Manitoba, you have that to be 4,200 to 5,100. For British Columbia, the population of grad students is between 15,200 to 18,400. Okay, so basically, at least when somebody looks at this, they know that they are looking at a map showing the provinces of Canada and then showing graduate students population for each of the province. Okay, the names are not showing. Right click on it like this. Okay, and then show labels. So if I click on show labels, it can go off. So you can turn it on and off. So just right click and then you go to show labels. And that should help it out. Now let's do this. If you right click and then we go to properties. Let's see. And then if you go to labels, right? The labels, the value should be province. Okay. So make sure that province is selected for the label. And then if you click OK. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, so if we go to properties, there's a lot we can do here. So under formatting, yeah, you can tag the tab distance, you can change that. And then one thing that you can do, the text orientation, you can even incline it. Okay, so vertical, rotation base, you can select the angle of inclination that you want. Okay, so these are some of the things that you can do about that. So usually I don't prefer the vertical because that flips your text, but horizontal, if they are too close, then you can change it. Or if the text size is too big, then you can reduce that. Okay, but if it is not too big and then it is on top of it, then we can use the rotation based and then it will flip it for you. And then for the placement as well, there is quite a lot you can do here. So you can, currently it's on the visible polygon. Okay, so that is where the name is around. That is where the name is, but you can change it. So you can put it on top of the whole polygon, but usually these defaults are okay. We can also play around the labels when we are making the maps. Okay, currently we are just working with the data. We haven't gotten to the point of exporting the map yet. So once we get to the point of exporting the map, we can play about with all the labels. Okay. Okay, so you said when you classify it manually, the colors do not appear. So let's quickly look at that again. So if we go to properties, all right. And then if we go to symbols, okay, so make sure that one, your value is undergraduated, just like I have. Okay, so once your value is undergraduated, okay, then we want to look at the number of grad student population. So that is what we've selected. All right. And then now that we have that, ensure that you have selected a color RAM. Okay, so now that if you select a color RAM, the colors won't fill. So for instance, let me select this one. You see that the colors don't show inside. It only, for instance, if I click on apply, right, the colors will show only at the boundaries. This is not what I want because it becomes very difficult to read it. Okay, the colors would show, the default colors would show at the boundaries, but I want the colors to fill the various provinces. Okay, so I would right click, I would go back to where I got to. So if I go back to properties, and then now that I have the colors here, okay, I want to make sure these boxes are filled, or I want to make sure that the various provinces are filled with the colors of my choice. Okay, so what you want to do is that you want to double click on the box, okay, then you scroll down, you can select any color of your choice. So first I select a simple blue, I give it an 80% transparency, okay, and I click OK. Now at this point, and then also make sure that your classes is to the number that you want. I can go to 6 classes. If I go to 6, you see another one, you can go to 7, 8, 9, 10, as much as you want. And at this point, I am using equal interval. Okay, so you can use different types of quantification that you want. okay? But for now, I want to go back to 5 classes, and then I would click on that. Make sure to select a color that is filled. Initially, we were using the boundaries, just like this one, the outline, but we want the fill. So you select that, then you give it a transparency value, and then you click OK. So you repeat that for all the others. And as I mentioned, to my preference, I use the cold colors for low values and then the warm colors for high values. So let's see, maybe deep blue, warm colors, which shows very high numbers. Okay, then to our very last one, which is red. Okay, so now we should have these 5 classes, and then we should have these classifications. Okay, so if we click apply and OK, we should see this. So now blue, we know that Yokun and Saskatchewan, the population is between 90 and 420, the least populated places with grad students. Data shows that those places are very cold. That is one. And then for the others, Ontario has a lot of grad students population for various reasons. So basically now we have this map here showing information that we have for different places. Okay, so now we want to move ahead and then actually make the map, export the data we have in the form of a map so that you can share it with someone, assuming that you are doing a project showing grad students population for different provinces in Canada. You need a study area map, or you need your results to show the study area with different students population. Okay, so now we want to go ahead to export the map. Now at this point, we haven't saved the work, so make sure that you save it. Okay, make sure that you save the work and then we can proceed. So I would go to desktop, and then I would go to data for training, and then I would call it graduate student map. And then I will save it. Okay, so now at this point, I have saved it. If my computer goes off without my knowledge, I can still retrieve it. Okay, so now this is the map we have done. That is our project, but we want to make a map out of it. You know, I mean, some people would just take a screenshot of the whole desktop, but I don't recommend that. There is a very simple way of generating your map where you can show the north arrow, you can show your legend, and then you can also show what is it called? You can show various map items. Okay, so if say we wanted to add a base map, all right, say if you have a base map showing the streets and all that, you can do that. If you want to add a base map, you go to web, all right, and then you go to quick map services, and then you can add any base map of your choice. So we can add Google labels, and then because our map is a bit large, it will show all of the other locations that we have. Had it been we were doing a very small kind of work that we wanted, we could have used some of these base maps, but we don't need to necessarily add a base map, but that is just something that I wanted you to know. You have multiple base maps in QGIS that you can have. So you can use or other locations. You can use UGS tectonic plates. I don't know if this is available currently on my version, but that is, yeah, it's available. So if you are a geologist, you want to use some of these resources. There are much more that you can do. If say you just want open streets, let's see. Let's try the Azure one if it is currently available to us. Okay, yeah. So that shows the whole of the Americas. It shows the whole globe, but at this point, we don't need these base maps for now. So we can turn those off. And then we want to proceed to export our map. Okay. So to export your map, what you want to do is that you want to go to projects. Here you click on projects, and then you go to the new print layout. So again, you go to projects, and then you go to new print layouts, like what I have, or you can just press Ctrl P and that should open it for you. So if I click on new print layout, I need to give it a name, okay, because I'm about to make a new map. So graduate students, okay. And again, spaces do not work well with these softwares, so make sure to use an underscore for that. So you click OK, and then that should open your map layout page for you. So now this is where we want to bring the map we've made, the analysis we've made, we want to bring it here and then develop the map out of it, okay? At this point, we should all have the map layout page just as it is showing, okay? So for now, we are so excited. We want to show our map. We are about to make our very first map, okay? So to do that, what we want to do is on the menu icons to the very left, okay? On the menu icons to the very left, you can see a human hand. That helps you to pan around the map, to move it, to hold it and move it around, okay? We can see the magnification tool over there. We can see the item selection, and then we can see the in-layer panning tool. So this one here, it allows you to move the items within the layer, which I will demonstrate shortly. But to bring the map that we have made in our project, we want to click on this icon here. So if you see a plus over here, just like it shows the data type or it shows how to add the data, you click on that, okay, just like we see. And then we want to draw our map here. So let's go ahead. If you can see my screen, and then if you can draw that. So now our map is showing. Do we see that? Now at this point, our map is showing here, okay? If I click on the map and try to move it, it will move the whole layer around. That's not what I want. I just want to ensure that I want to work with just the content of the map. So if I want to work with the content of the map alone, instead of using the button that I have selected as the whole layer, I would choose the one underneath, the one that shows some arrows pointing in different directions, okay? And then now I can just move the content. Do we see that? So we can move the content using that option over there. You can move it up, down, side by side. It should be okay to do that. So we can move it down a little bit. All right. If assuming I wanted to zoom into the map and then I wanted to zoom into only one point, I can do that. I can just zoom into 𝗷𝗊𝘆𝗶. Okay, say I want a map of 𝗷𝗊𝘆𝗶, I can just do that. Or I can also change the scale. So what I can do is I can reduce the numbers and then the scale will change. So for now, I just want it as it is over here. So this over here is the map that we have shown. This is where we used to be, having worked on the map, right? So you go to project. Okay, when you go to project, then you go to new print layout, just like we have here. Okay, so if you go to new print layouts, you click on that and then you give it a name. All right. So now you click OK, and then it should open your map layout for you. Now it's empty. We haven't drawn anything yet, so it is empty. So in order to draw our map, all right, you see the menu options or the menu icons on the left, right? You have the pan icon, which allows you to move around. You have the zoom in icon. You have that one, the mouse pointer. Okay, that is what would help you to move your entire layout you have drawn around. But usually we don't want to play with that. And then if you want to move the map content alone, the move item content should help you do that. So that is what is showing. Okay. If we want to draw the map, the very fifth one, you see it says add map. Okay, this very fifth one over here, it says add map. That is the one we want to use. So you click on that one, okay, and now it should be selected. Once I click on that, I should see a crosshairs, just like it's showing, okay? And once I have the crosshairs, I can draw, okay, the map that I want. So once I do that, it should draw my map here for me. Do we see that? Any questions so far? I think there was a question about the size is coming out too small. So what you can do is that you can zoom, you can select the move map content, okay, this option here. You can select that, okay, and then you can zoom in onto the map. So if yours is too small, you can zoom in. If yours is too, you can zoom out. If yours is too big, you can zoom in like that. Okay, and another way to also play around the map is that you see the parts where it says scale. You can change it. You can change the scales. Okay, so if I come back here to the map pane that I have, the scale is even here, so you can still change it. If I wanted to make the map a little bit bigger in there, I can reduce the number. So now I'm looking at 1240963. I can make it 11, and then that should change it a little bit. That should make it small. So instead of 114, I can make it 113, and that should increase the size a little bit. So you can play with the scale of the map. This value here, the smaller the value is, the bigger your map is. The bigger this value is, so say if I wanted to make, say this is 4, the map would be smaller. Do we see that? So you can play with the scale, and then you can increase the size of your map. So you can use what I have in mind, or you can play around it, just so you are okay. All right. All right. So now we want to go ahead, and then now we have our map. Okay. So commonly I like to make beautiful maps. I like to make it look appealing. So once the layer outline is selected, you can see a thin, faint blue line, right? If you click on that icon as I've shown, and then you click on it, it's selected. Like if I can, you can see me moving that outline, right? You can see that, right? So this blue outline here, it is called a frame. I want to make it black. Okay, so I can scroll down a little bit, and then where it says frame, I can check it. And then where it says thickness, I can increase it a bit to 0.5. And now you can see a black outline here. Okay, so you can see a black outline here. And then now I want to add certain things into my map. Now, if I just leave this map to you, if you weren't the one who made it to know that it is showing grad student population, it will be very difficult for you to read it. Okay, so I want to add a legend. The legend describes what is in the map. Okay, so the legend icon is what you can see that has some gradation. So that is the legend icon, where you have some 3 dots to the side, green, red, and yellow. So you click on that one like that, and just like you drew the map frame, you also draw the legend frame. So we can draw the legend frame just like we have, And then you can see that we have a lot of legend items in there that we don't need all of them. Okay, so even at this point, we don't need to show the data from the spreadsheet, the point over there. We don't have to show it. We just want to show the various provinces and then the population ranges. Okay, so in order to remove some of these legend items, what you do is that you double click on the legend, and then to your right, okay, where it says legend, you scroll down a little bit. So let me move this up here. So where it says the legend items, do we see that? We can see we have some selected provinces, selected whatever it is over here. So we can, if you click auto update, right? If you check and uncheck, right? You can remove some of it from there. So first we want to uncheck it here, and then we want to remove the selected province. We don't want it. We don't want to show it. So you click on the minus sign, and that goes from the legend items. And then we don't want to show the various base maps. So we click on that, and then we remove it. So you can remove all the items that you do not need. And then at this point, we have just the information we need to show whoever is using the map that we want to make. Okay, so if you want to rename some of these things, you can clearly do that. So if you double click on it, all right. So for instance, selected provinces, this is showing graduate students population. So if you double click like that, you can change it and type graduate student population. Okay, and you can click back at this point. All right, and there are a lot of things you can do. You can increase the size, you can change the font of it. So if I come here, the font type, the size is around 16, that is okay. It's to the left side of it. Okay, yes, for sure, no worries at all. All right, so I would take away the legend for now and then re-add it again. So if I press backspace, it's going to take my legend away. Okay, so to add the legend's menu icon is what is shown. So currently I have my mouse pointed on the legend menu. Do you see that? So this one here, I have my mouse hovering around it. So once you click, it has some 3 dots to the side. Okay, so once you click on that, then you just draw your legend. Okay, now once you draw the legend will show all the information or all the layers you have in your content pane in the map project. Okay, so we have all the layers we have in our content pane in the map project, but we don't need all of them. At this point, our map is just showing the provinces and then the grad students population by color. Okay, so we would remove all information we don't need for now. So you click on the legend, which is drawn. Okay, I would draw it again. So that is the legend icon. You click on it, and then you draw it again like that. And then your legend comes over here. Now, if we scroll down, these are our legend items. We don't need all of them. We only need the provinces selected and the grad students population by color. So in order to remove some of them, now auto update picks everything from your map itself. So in order to remove some of them, you uncheck auto update. Okay. Once you uncheck that, you select the one you don't want. Like now, I don't want the shapefile, okay, showing here. So I can click on that one. And then if you come below your legend items, you would see some options. You would see the plus sign, the minus sign, you would see a whole lot of things. So what you want to do is you want to select any item here that you don't need. And then you click on the minus red sign. just like it's showing, the subtraction sign. So you click on the subtraction sign and it deletes it from your legend items. So now it is removed from our legend, okay? And then you click on the base maps, we now don't need them. So we remove those ones too as well. And then now all that is left is the items that we need as part of our legend, okay? So now that we have only the legend items we need, we want to rename them. You can rename them, you can edit the font size and all. So in order to do that, you double click on the item that you want to rename. Now the name says Selected Provinces Canada, but I just want to say Graduate Student Population. Okay, that is what I want. After you are done, then you click on the arrow sign or the triangle beside where it says Legend Item Property. So you click on that, and then the change we did, you should see that it is reflecting on your legends. Now, do not check the update button, because if you check the update button, it picks the default from the map. Okay, so once we have this, now this is all the items we want to need. So we need. So now that we have it, we can scroll down a little bit, and again, you can edit the font, you can increase the font size if you want. That is the size. You can change the alignment and anything you want to work with, or any changes that you want to make. Okay, so for now, I would keep it, but again, I would make the frame, I would make sure the frame is there, which is one thing that I really like. It just makes the map nice. So now the frame is showing, and then I have my legend showing. So anybody who looks at this map can say, okay, the map is showing selected provinces in Canada, and the colors show graduate students population. Okay, so now that we have that, also we want to add the scale bar of our map. Assuming you wanted to do some measurements, you can do that. So the scale bar is this option here, just below the legend symbol, the part where you add the legend. So below that, it says the add scale bar. So you click on it, and then you draw your scale bar. So once you draw your scale bar, you can see it on top of your map. Okay. So again, for the scale bar too, you can edit it. Now, if you can observe, the unit is in kilometers. So if you click on that, you can change the units from kilometers to miles, and that will change it for you. And then again, in terms of the font size, you can add your frame. You can even change the alignment for the text. So currently we have if we scroll down a little bit, where is it? Yeah, so if we scroll down and we go to display, where it says skill bar display, right? You would see that vertical label placement, it says above segment. So you can put it below, and that will change it. Okay, you can also change the font if you want, all right? But usually for my skill bar, I prefer to use some types that are quite simple. So we can go back to over here, and then I would choose the line that I want. So commonly, this is the kind of skill bar that I use. So I would put my skill bar in the middle. I like to arrange it. And same way we added the skill bar, now we want to add the north arrow. Okay, so if we want to add the north arrow, it is just below the add skill bar button. So that is add legend, that is add skill bar, and that is add north arrow. So just like we can see, you click on that, and again, you draw your north arrow. Okay, and same way, you can You can move your north arrow around, you can edit it. So if you click on it, under the arrows, under the section that says arrows, you can select any one of your choice. Okay, so that is the one I would choose. And in terms of the frame, again, I will put a frame there. And in terms of the position and size, I can decide to change it. But these are some of the things that you can play around at your free time. So for the placement, I would put it top center. And for now, we should have something that looks like a map. Anyone can look at it and interpret it, okay? For the north arrow, let me take the frame off so that at least it looks quite nice to observe, yeah. So that is what we have at the moment for our various map elements. And then we want to add a title to our map, okay, so that in case someone picks up our map, they know what they are looking at, okay? So do we have any questions up to this point? Let me quickly. All right, so we have no questions. So we want to add a title to our map, okay? So to add a title, we would go to that option that says add text. So directly on top of the add legend, you have add text over there. Okay, so you click on it and then you can draw that. So once you draw that, okay, once you draw that, you should see that you have your add text option opened. So you can erase whatever it is here, and then you can give it a name, say map of graduates, students, population in selected provinces of Canada. Okay, and once you have that, we can always change our font. Now the font size is 10, is too small, so you can increase it to say about 22. That should be okay. And in terms of the appearance, we can center it, you can left align it, so there's a lot here, so you can center it if you want, depending on your preference. But basically, this should show what we have. So now at least this is showing our map of graduate student population in selected provinces of Canada. Okay, and whoever takes it should know that whatever color they are seeing corresponds to a particular population range of graduate students. Okay, and then for the selected provinces, the person should know that they are looking at British Columbia, Alberta, and those that is shown in here. So do we have any questions at this point? Any questions? All right, so if we have no questions, then what we would need to do next is to export this map, okay? So we would have to export it as an image. Again, you don't need to take a screenshot, okay? So, and you can add a lot more text as well. For instance, if you want to let people know you were the one that, okay, Carlos, please go ahead. So what you do is you double click on the legend, okay? Once you double click on the legend, you should see that the legend items property opens just like I have here, okay? Now, once you have that, anything you want to rename, okay? So now I want to change from, assuming I wanted to change from graduate student population or from selected provinces, you double click on it here. If you double click, it should open it for you. It should bring up the label option for you like that. Okay, and now you can delete it, you can change it. You can change it, say number of Okay, so now I have it as number of graduate students. All right. Now, once I have it as the number of graduate students, okay, you click on the triangle to the left of legend item properties. Do you see this triangle? Once you click that, it brings you back here. Now it's showing the name I just typed, number of grad students. Do not check the auto updates. Okay, do not check it, or neither the updates, or just keep it like this. If you check it, it'll pick the default from the map we made. Okay, so once you have this here, you can add all other things you want, like the scale bar, the north arrow, the text, and in case you want to put your name on it, so that, I mean, whoever knows that it was you who did it. I mean, you can put information, not necessarily name, but say your contact details if someone wants to contact you, or whatever text you want. Maybe you want to do a description, say, for instance, this map shows the number of graduate students living within selected provinces in Canada. Maybe all data used for this map were downloaded and available upon request. This is something that you can do. Okay, so you can do that, and then whoever picks your map, they can read it. They can read that information. So if that is something you want to do, I mean, I don't do that, but depending on the field that you are using your map, you can go ahead to do that. All right. Or say if you want to add your name to it. So maybe okay. So you can do all that. If you want to add your contact details, whatever text that you want to show, you can go ahead to show it. Okay, so that is just something for you to know. You can add descriptions to your map so that whoever sees it, they read it and they know what the map is about. But usually the title of the map alone gives information what the map is showing. Okay, so are there any questions before we proceed to exporting it? So, all right, so I just wrote any random text that this map shows the number of, just any text descriptions. Okay, like, so that whoever takes the map knows what the map is about. So that is basically what I did right there, just for you to know that you can use the add text option to write any text you want to add to your map. Okay, you don't necessarily have to do that, but in case you want to write any information, you can do that. Yeah. So I presume we are all at this point and we are ready to export the map. Okay. So again, remember that the map is not saved. So you want to save it. You click on save, and now it is saved to your folder. Okay. But now we want to export it as an image. All right. So in order to export it, you go to layout. Okay. You click on layout as it is showing, and then you export as image. So if you click on export as image, it should open the file directory on your computer, and then you can locate to the location where you have your work, and then you can save it here. So I would say map of graduate students. Yeah. And then you click save. Now, once you click save, it will ask you for the resolution. Usually I use 150 dpi, which is, it gives me the best resolution for my computer, but you can play around it, but 150 works very good for all sort of computers. And then I would click save. So once I click save, now my map should be exported. And then over here, it says layout exported successfully. So if I click on this link here, it should take me to my folder. Okay. And then now that is my map. So if I open my map like that, if I open it, I should see a picture of the map that I have just exported. So now I can share this picture, with anyone who wants it. Like, assuming somebody asks me to make this map for them, I can share it with them. You can import this picture. Assuming you were writing a thesis, you can import this picture and then you can use it as you need it. So this is basically the steps of how to import data into QGIS, how to do some simple processing of the data, and then how to basically create a map that you can use in all your write-ups, in all your publications, and what have you. Okay, so we would go ahead to look at working with the open topography data. Okay, just doing some simple terrain analysis. Okay, so again, this takes me to being a little bit biased because the environment